Hello, everyone. It's really a pleasure to be here today with you. I hope you are all enjoying amazing presentations and you're looking forward to the evening part and probably the coffee break as well. So my name is Anna. I'm a user experience and design consultant here at Google. My job is basically to help you to improve user experiences and conversion rates on your mobile websites. I will be taking you through some best practices, A/B test suggestions, and we will also talk a little bit about design, because again, this topic is very close to my heart. I do work, that's some info about me from the Conversions at Google website. I do work as a UX and a SEO consultant at Google, but in my free time, I draw, I illustrate books, and I work in virtual reality. And as an artist, I'm always trying to create very strong visual identities and to also create very unique experiences for people. However, in my daytime job, I'm thinking on how to provide people with very consistent experiences and make things look the same. So there was that conflict inside me, and this is the conflict that I quite often see in the companies I'm working with. Designers want to do their best and to create very beautiful and unique interfaces. However, designing for the web often means following some best practices and industry standards. So how do we create the websites that are unique enough but still recognizable and converting? How important is this visual part of the interface? And when is that point when we can start being creative? I'm going to quote here a great UX designer, Daniel Schwartz. And what he is saying is that, as a rule, UI is how you interact with the product. It's how can I read the content? Can I tap on it? Can I click? How it responds? And then the UX is the resulting opinion, emotion felt by the user. Do we perceive the website as a fast or slow? Does it make us feel happy or really frustrated? So UI is all about how things look, but then UX is all about how things work and whether they really work for the user. Let's take first the UI part, the visual. As a UX and a SEO consultant, I can confirm that the visual design still matters. It is still very, very important. Good visual design would help make things look intuitive, obvious. It's going to help people recognize things and understand how they can interact with the content. And I'm just going to give you some example of our own products. Back in the days, we had a very inconsistent design and very inconsistent experience across Google products. And we decided that we do need to develop some guidelines of UI design that we can use across all platforms. And you probably know what I'm going to talk about now. We developed and published online the components of Google Material Design, and it's all based on the 3 key principles. The first one is the principle of tangible surfaces. The next one is the meaningful motion. And the last one is the classic tradition of the graphic design. And we do believe that it helps to build very intuitive interfaces and helps people to recognize how to interact with the content, because every single piece of the UI is considered to be a piece of a digital paper, and it responds to the actions of the user, and it interacts with other elements of the UI as a piece of actual physical material. And then we realized that, okay, these guidelines are probably not just for Google, and other companies can use them to help to build some very beautiful and unique experiences. And we published them online, and you can use them all now. So that will help you to, at the same time, create those websites that follow some best practices of visual design, so you don't reinvent the wheel and you don't spend the time and resources on figuring out how these things work, but then you redirect your energy and your resources to solving tougher business problems. And at the same time, this visual language allows a lot of possibilities to express your brand. So of course, you should aim to be creative, and you should aim to achieve this very unique look, very unique feeling for your user, but only after you make sure things are recognizable, only after you make sure you are following best practices. So study those best practices, use different visual design languages that already exist there, don't reinvent the wheel, and then let your creativity operate on top. And whenever you have any creative idea on how, for example, your menu button could look like or any other element of the interface, you should always be checking whether it really works, right? The UX of the whole thing. And the way you do that is you launch an A/B test. You've heard about this today multiple times, and you're going to hear about A/B testing even more. But this is actually something that we've learned that this A/B testing is the only way on how you can be absolutely sure you're doing the right thing. And just to illustrate that, imagine there was an A/B test run on mobile, and 50% of the mobile traffic, they experienced the version of the website on the left, 50% of the audience saw the version on the right, and the only difference, more or less, as you can see, is the color of the button reserve. It says reserve, but it doesn't really matter, just the color. So now it's my question to you. Which button do you think showed a better click-through rate? And now if you can maybe put the lights on and just now raise your hand, everyone who thinks it's blue. Okay, few hands, about 20%. Raise your hand who thinks it was orange. Okay, much more. Cool, I will torture you not anymore. So specifically in this case, and you got it right, that was orange. But what I really wanted to illustrate with this example is that you can have arguments for both. And absolutely every time when I show the slide to different companies I'm working with and ask, okay, which one? People would have very different opinions based on their personal preferences, previous experience, and their assumptions. So when it comes to things like UI or UX design, color of the button, things may seem to be very subjective, but they are not. In fact, you should not argue at all which color of the button should be there. You should just launch an A/B test and see what really works. And the other reason why you should consider A/B testing everything that you see, everything that you hear today at the conference is because orange one does not work better all the time than blue. The fact that it worked better in this time doesn't mean that it's going to be the same for your UI. So that's why you should be studying all the best practices, different case studies that we are talking about, but you should always, always be A/B testing them. Now, moving on to the fun part with the screenshots. And so what are those basic principles of the UX design? What are those things that work for the user? And what are those things that you can have on the landing page? About 4 years ago, we published the 25 principles of mobile site design. See the old logo up there? It's not the one anymore. So those have done a great job, and people have been using them for their websites. But then we thought, okay, what's next for us at Google, and how do we develop our vision for the mobile web even further? And about the same time, 4 years ago, we've set up a team here in Dublin, Google Mobile UX consultancy team. And up to date, we have completed more than 500 projects, UX optimization projects with different companies, with you. So thanks. No, it's my applause to you. 4 years, 500 projects, and believe me, I want to talk about every one of them, but my 4-hour request was declined. I will take you through some of the learnings, though. This is a conversion rate optimization framework, and yes, you can all take the picture now. That we use it to analyze our customers' websites, and as you can see, it has 4 key pillars. The first one is the attention part. It's all about the key message that you communicate as a business, and the key message that people can find on the website. The next one is engagement. It's all about how can I interact with the content, and what are those things that I can do. And the last one, the last out of the 3, is the action. So if the user has decided that, yes, this is a service I want to go for, this is a product I want to buy, how easy it is actually for them to convert. And the last one, the green, the flow, it's kind of always there. It's all this conversation about speed and performance that you're listening from us. And it's something that the site hygiene, so everything about making sure the site is always functioning well. I'm going to focus on the attention part today because that is something which is relevant to the homepage and the landing page design. But later on, at the end of presentation, I will also share with you some Go links and checklists where you can find the rest of recommendations. So watch out. And the homepage and landing page is all about the first impression that you create with the user. Imagine the user came to your landing page for the first time. They probably came from somewhere, and they have certain expectations. So different studies show that the majority of people will decide whether your website meets their expectations or not from what they see above the fold. Crazy. That's why it's very, very important on what exactly you put there. I'm going to talk through the example from retail, but then later on we will see some other ones. So based on this, we do believe that there always should be 3 high-level elements present above the fold. And the first one is something that Lina has already talked about, is a very clear value proposition. Something that makes you stand out from your competitors, something that would describe you as a business, and also the reason why people should stay on your website and continue engaging with the content. And this should be something which is relevant to all users. So for example, some discount or information on the free delivery, or some value, like some statement on who you are. There also should always be a call to action, and that is something that you all already know. It's also fine if you have multiple call to action above the fold. That is the way you actually give different types of users different ways to explore the content. For example, if I already a certain purchase intent, if I already have an idea of what I want to buy, I can start searching for a keyword, right? If I'm spontaneous enough, and I don't know what I want to buy, I can click on the promo banner. Or if I just want to understand what is the full range of services, the full range of products that you're offering on the website, I will start scrolling down the high-level categories. And the last one, but not least, are the visuals. Never underestimate the importance of visuals. These can be images, different visuals illustrating your product or service range. It can be visuals supporting your value proposition, or it can be images of some happy people, some happy picture of the future where the user can get if they use your product or your service. And this rule, again, it's very universal. It is something which is relevant to all of you. To show you some more examples from other industries, so the N26, they have a very nice call to action, very contrasting color. It grabs all my attention. I'm very clear what I can do on this page. I can open a bank account. The visuals support quite well the value proposition. It's all about mobile and about banking. Now, the Love Holidays example I like because it shows how you can structure your value proposition into key 3 bullet points and make them really stand out. For different B2B services or just different products, the value proposition can be a little bit more comprehensive. It may consist of several parts, like a headline, a sub-headline, and then sometimes they use so-called boosters, like no credit card required, or free trial for the first month. So something that would resolve the user anxiety, and something that would say nothing bad is going to happen if I click there. Cool. So that's, again, this very basic but very important rule of the 3 elements of the first impressions, and I'm going to just walk you quickly through all of this. The value proposition is very, very important, and you should also check what message exactly works for your target audience. We've been working on optimizing user experience for Kissmia.com. It's a dating website, and they had this idea of different value propositions that they wanted to test for users who come to their website for the first time, and the action for them is to create an account. And the first one that they tested was easy way to find your soulmate. And then, okay, that one worked. But then they tested another one, and that showed a better performance. That one was serious dating and communication. So the serious one worked better than the easy one. But they did another one, the third one, and that one was actually the best. Can anybody guess what value proposition was there? What was it about? What? Love? I'm just like, I was like, how did you know? No, but like, I know you probably saw this on your friend's phone somewhere. It actually was love. It was find your true love today. And yeah, at the end of the day, it's all about love and about A/B testing your value propositions. The next one is a call to action. So call to action is a collection of 4 things. It's the shape, the message, the color of the button, and also the placement where you put it on the page. And of course, now I will say that you should A/B test all 4 of them. So regarding the color, the rule here, the more contrast, the more bright is the color, the more attention it is going to grab, and then the more people are going to click and interact with it. So if you have, for example, just 1 button per page, you can afford to have a very bright color. However, if you have, for example, multiple call to actions on the page, like the John Lewis, you can use a ghost button design, because that's how it doesn't steal all the user attention, and it still allows other elements of the UI, like the high-level categories or the top navigation bar, to still be present. Regarding the placement of the call to action, if you have just one key action per page, you can consider fixing it either on the top or on the bottom of the page. The second one is a little bit more mobile friendly, because if I hold the device with one hand, I don't have to change the way I hold it in order to tap, right? But you should absolutely A/B test all the options. And then this is a very elegant solution, rather than duplicating the same call to action many times if you have a really long page. This is the way how the user will always see the call to action and always be aware about it. And if you have search, and especially if it works really well, this is one of the most important call to actions that you should have on your landing page. Different A/B tests show that the more you expose the search bar, the more prominently you show it, the more clicks it's going to get, the more searches you're going to get. And okay, that's fine, but like why we should be A/B testing this, why we should display it more prominently, the only thing you should check, you should go to the Google Analytics and see what is the conversion rate for people who use search. And what we usually see in Google Analytics of our clients, that the conversion rates for these people, they are much, much higher than for people who don't use search. That's why these people, they came to your website with certain purchase intent, with an idea of what they want to buy. And you need to provide them with an excellent search functionality, display the search bar prominently, and make an emphasis on this with design. It's not only about the call to action being there above the fold, but also about why it is there. Go into Google Analytics, understand what are those key call to actions that drive most of your revenue, what are the most important call to actions for your users, and use design to highlight them, to put an emphasis on them. The last one, it's actually not the last one, but the next one is the visuals. Never underestimate the importance of visuals. Do always use them, no matter what industry you operate in. Even if you're finance or a B2B service, this is something which is very important to support your value proposition. In this example, the RIKE team, they tested different landings, and they are a project management software, and this is a desktop product that they have, so the goal of landing pages on mobile for them is purely lead generation. And they had an idea of different marketing messages that they wanted to test, and they created separate landings for each of the messages and special visuals. So the first one was operational excellence with some image of the factory. The next one was execute at speed, some highway and the car in it. And the last one was the brilliant minds with some picture of a brain, and probably brilliant. And those pages, they showed absolutely different performance in terms of the exit rates and bounce rates, which again shows the importance of supporting your value proposition with visuals, because that's how you really deliver the message across, and you see the difference, how different value propositions are working. All pictures, they should be always purposeful. If you're illustrating any value proposition with some abstract thing, that can work really well. But what we also see is working really well are images of people, because that is creating some emotional connection with the user. It is establishing the trust with people. And if you ever decide to A/B test images of people on your landing page, be aware of this psychological thing. The moment when we see a human face, a picture of a person, the next thing we're going to look at will be the direction where this person is looking. That means that you can use this on your websites and put some crucial, most important information or a call to action in these places. Bluehost is using this very efficiently on their landing. I come to the website, and the first thing I unconsciously look at is the lady, because our brain is built in a way that we look at images first, we interpret them, and only then we read text, right? And then I look at the lady, and the next thing that I unconsciously look at will be their value proposition, like the best web hosting and the discount they offer, and then I will be like, wow, should I really go and click the green button now? So do you be aware of that, and definitely A/B test different images of people on your landings. Lena has talked about importance of always displaying the high-level categories of your products, of your services that you are offering, because that's how you describe everything what your business is about. And then the important thing here would be to always illustrate the high-level categories with visuals as well. These can be pictures, these can be different icons. Also, the other way around, whenever you use any icons, any visuals on your websites, on your landings, do complement them with text labels, because that's how you avoid any misinterpretations. Even if you use standard icons like the hamburger menus, it's always safer to include the label, because people would have very different level of web experience, and they still may interpret things in a very different way. Page length and personalization is something that I'm hearing questions about quite often. Should we do the short landings? Should we do long landings? How much of the content should really be there? And the answer to that is not that simple. It is actually depending a lot on the key metrics that you are measuring. For example, at the same team, the right guys, they did compare two landings. The first one was a very short one. It had pretty much just the value proposition and the call to action register. The next one was much longer, and it had a lot of content, but the user could only access the content after they responded to a couple of questions. For example, what is your role and what you want to see? For example, I am a marketeer and I want to see how I can help my team. And then I get redirected to the page, to the relevant part of the page, and I find some answers to my specific questions. And what they saw after comparing these two pages is that the conversion rate was actually much higher on the short one, right? It's very straightforward. I can do nothing else but to leave my email address, right? I cannot escape this. But then the quality of leads that they were getting from these pages was actually much higher in the second one. So, and because people who already engaged with the content, they found some specific answers to their questions, they expressed much more interest in their product later on and in maybe some collaboration projects. So it's, at the end of the day, it's not only about conversions, it's also about the quality of these conversions, the quality of leads you're getting from these conversions, and the average order value or any other business metric that you are measuring. And yeah, that was all about getting their attention. You can find the more A/B testing suggestions and recommendations at this Go link. Please use them, please test them. And I'm going to conclude my presentation with the key points. I will start from the back. The first one will be, do always follow best practices, right? You don't reinvent the wheel. There are already certain things about what you should have, what works from the UX design perspective, and also some best practices about how things should look like from the UI design perspective. The next thing is, do use your creativity to operate on top of the best practices. Explore how creative you can get and how you can achieve this unique visual look or unique experience for your users after the best practices are there and things are recognizable enough. But the final thing I'm going to leave you with today is always A/B test, because again, this is the way how you can check whether the best practice is working for you. This is also the way how you can check whether creative idea is a really good one or it's just crazy and people will be much more confused than they were before. And also this is the way how you can check whether you're really improving things for the user, that you're not redesigning the website for the sake of redesign, but you're actually impacting your key metrics. Thank you.